Okay, you guys, now we are moving on to local winds. So these are winds that are set up by local pressure systems rather than global pressure systems. And the first one that we're going to start out with are probably the most famous and well known, and those are the monsoon winds. Okay, so what do you think of when you hear the word monsoon? It's probably not winds, right? You're thinking rain. Well, that's because it turns out that at least one of the seasonal monsoon winds does bring a ton of rain. So if you want your definition of monsoon winds, here it is. A wind system that changes its direction between the seasons as a result of changing high and low pressure systems. So repeat, and you can always, of course, pause these videos now, but a wind that changes its direction between the seasons as a result of changing high and low pressure systems. So what does that mean? Let's draw a picture and find out. Okay, so I'm going to draw two maps, and they're going to be of the same area but different seasons. So let's do the first one in the winter and the second one in the summer. And the place, you guys know where monsoons are very common? That's right, in Asia. So I'm going to draw a very lame kind of map. Pretend that's Asia in the winter. And then here's going to be Asia in the summer. Okay, so this is the Pacific Ocean over here and the Indian Ocean over here. Very general. Okay, so we just want to look at the pressure systems that get set up over winter. Well, we just talked about the pressure system that sets up over northern Asia in the winter, the Siberian High. So what type of pressure system do you think is going to be in this area? If you guessed a high pressure system, you would be absolutely correct. So let's do blue. So here we have a high that sets up over the winter because it's the continental effect. It gets very cold. It's a large landmass. The air gets heavy. It subsides. It creates high pressure. Now, does air converge or diverge around a high pressure? So remember our drawing. It can only go out. So yes, it diverges. Beep, beep, beep. Okay, so this represents the wind, these arrows here. And would you say that, do you think that that air, that wind, is going to be dry or moist because of where it's coming from? If you guessed dry, you'd be right because it's coming from over land. It's not coming from over the water. So in the winter, in this area, the monsoon winds, this is a dry season. Oops, let's go back to a pen. The dry season. Now here we are in the summer. We also have the continental effect, right? Which one heats up more, the land or the water? The answer would be the land. So if the land heats up more compared to the water, then the air is going to get warm and it's going to expand and become buoyant and rise, right? So what type of pressure is at the surface during the summer if air is rising? That's right, it would be a low. So let's go to the pen and draw in a low pressure. Now, if it's low, is air going to be converging or diverging around that low? So remember, we've got air rising. Well, air is going to be brought in towards the low. Plus, we always know wind moves from high to a low. Okay, so we're going to draw our arrows moving into on land. So here's the kicker, you guys. This water here is, let's see, can I figure this out? I'm trying to see if I can get, oh, never mind. Here we go. Beep, beep. So let's just say this means that the water's warm. The water's warm. It doesn't get as hot as the land, but it's warm. So you know that means a ton of evaporation. A ton. The air is warm. It's in the summer and the water is warm, so it's evaporating. And so the air that's being brought on shore is super duper humid and moist. And as it's forced to rise because of the land, and there's some big mountains over here, as you remember, Himalayas, as it begins to rise and move over cooler landscape, no, sorry, scratch that. As it begins to rise, it will cool and dump out all that moisture, and that's the monsoon rains that you have heard about or maybe even experienced. Okay, they're just crazy and they're seasonal. That's really what monsoon wind means. It's a seasonal wind and it shifts. So there's the dry season and there is the wet season. Okay, in the summer, which is different from what we get, right? Our wet season is in the winter and our dry season is in the summer. So it's opposite. Okay, so that is the first of our local winds. Do you have any questions? So this would be a good time for you to write down some questions and, submit that with your notes. Okay, let's move on to the next wind and then I will pause. Let's add a paper here. Okay, so the next wind is actually kind of similar to the monsoon winds, but on a much smaller scale and in terms of location and in terms of time. So these are daily winds instead of seasonal winds. And you might remember that we refer to winds by the direction that they're coming from. So in this case, we're going to be looking at what are called onshore, offshore winds. Onshore, offshore winds. And those are also known as, so that's the AKA, right? Also known as land sea breeze. You guys have probably all experienced this, I'm sure. Okay, so where the monsoons are seasonal, these are daily. And here's the definition. These are daily shifts of wind, shifting meaning direction, daily shifts of wind due to changing high and low pressure gradients. Daily shifts of winds due to changing high and low pressure gradients. So this is, I'm going to draw this similar kind of thing as I did for the monsoon winds. We've got a map of two areas at different times. So instead of winter, summer, let's do daytime and nighttime. And let's say that this is the LA basin where I have lived in the past. Okay, like that's Palos Verdes. So Los Angeles. Water. Which ocean is this? That's right, it's the Pacific Ocean. Same one we have up north. Okay, so during the day, think about this. Sun comes up, starts heating things up. Which one's gonna heat up faster? The land or the ocean? From our land water rule. That's right, it's the land. Okay, so the land heats up and the air above it also heats up. And as the air above it heats up, what's going to do? It's going to expand, become lighter and more buoyant, and it's going to rise. If it rises, what type of pressure is going to happen at the surface? Exactly. It is a low pressure that forms during the day over land. If it's low pressure, you guys remember, low pressure, air rising, does it converge or diverge? It's going to move in to replace that air, so it's converging around the low. That means that the air is going to be moving onshore. Okay, now here is something that you're going to love. So remember how I said that winds are named by the direction that they're coming from? Well, the only exception to that rule, at least that I'm aware of, is this. Okay, so when the winds are moving onshore, which is the direction they're moving to, they're called onshore winds. Okay, so we're not actually calling them by where they're coming from in this exception. But we do, for the land sea breeze, we do talk about where it's coming from. If we were on the beach here and there was a breeze coming in from over the sea, we would say, oh, what a nice, refreshing sea breeze we have. So that one follows the rule. This is the only one that doesn't follow that rule. Okay. All right, let's look at the nighttime. The nighttime, the sun goes down, everything starts to cool. Which one cools faster, the water or the land? That is correct. The land is going to cool off faster. So what we get is, of course, you guys, cold air subsides because it's heavier and denser, creating high pressure. And the air diverges. So we're going to put high pressure. This is comparatively, right? It's just like a local shift in pressure from high to low this way, and then from high to a comparative low this way at night. And I have stayed the night on the beach before. You know, when I was skipping school and things like that, I would do crazy stuff like go just sleep on the beach or on the cliffs or whatever. Okay, so I know this shift. So we have air that's moving offshore, and that would therefore be called the offshore breeze because, or the offshore wind, because of this exception that I told you about. And it's also a land breeze. Okay, I hope that makes sense, you guys. I'm going to pause it here so you can take a breather, and then we'll come back with another short video to talk about 2 more types of winds. Okay.